What's shaking?
If you're able to help your candidates trust you and help your clients trust you, you're going to kill it. That's been true since recruitment started. It'll be true forever.
This is your quote. I'm quoting you. I went from never selling a day in my life to closing 750,000 within 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in the world did that happen?
I was as surprised as you are, Victoria.
What happened in between?
A pretty gigantic jump.
Okay, I'm officially a fan, you guys.
My father-in-law was so gracious, and he was saying to me, the reason you've been so successful is not because you picked recruitment as an industry. It's because of who you are.
Do you want to say that 750K came from LinkedIn?
Recruiting is not sales. Like a lot of people say it is, but sales, you're trying to get someone to give you money. With recruiting, you're trying to hand someone a great opportunity.
I lost my thought.
You can learn anything. You can figure out how to sell. You can figure out how to do business development.
You're so good.
It's an industry agnostic practice that as long as you genuinely care about people, are really, really talented at making and then cultivating relationships and have 100% say-do ratio, then you'll be successful.
You're so good at putting things clearly. Welcome to the second episode of the First Time CEO podcast. Today, my guest is incredible Julia Arpag, the founder and CEO of Aligned Recruitment. Launched in August 2023, the company has rapidly made its mark by closing nearly $800K US while staying fully bootstrapped and profitable from day one. Julia connects mission-driven SaaS startups to top-tier tech talent. Her approach is about building engineering teams that drive success. During our conversation, we've discussed Julia's personal journey from Layoff to the first-time CEO, shifts in recruitment, including AI's role and human-centric methods, LinkedIn sales strategies, and building authentic client relationships, leadership challenges, wins, failures, and other lessons, balancing business growth with personal life. And with that said, I invite you to join us. Hi, everyone. This is the First Time CEO podcast, and I'm your host, Victoria. I am the first time CEO myself. I'm the co-founder of Olympia. We provide entrepreneurs with AI teams. And if you want to boost your productivity and efficiency to the max, I will leave the link in the description along with all the app links. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today. Hi, Julia. How are you doing?
Hi, Victoria. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm absolutely excited to have you and talk about your journey today.
Me too.
So let's dive right in. Around 17 months ago, you were laid off 5 weeks after giving birth to your fourth son. And then here we are today, where you are the first-time CEO running a successful HR agency, Aligned Recruitment. Can you please connect the dots for me? What happened in between?
Yeah, point A to point B was a pretty gigantic jump. So yeah, great first question, Victoria. I love it. So yeah, I was laid off 5 weeks postpartum with my fourth son. I have two biological sons, one who's now 1 and one who's 3. And then I have two foster sons, one who's 14 and one who's 15. So it was a pretty crazy call for my CEO that summer day. But honestly, I had total peace right from the get-go. I'm a Christian, so my faith is a huge kind of rock for me. So I knew that whatever happened, that God had my back. And to be fully transparent with you, I actually received several job offers. I even took one of them at first because I was nervous to start my business. But I'd been thinking about it for a little while, and I was like, you know what? I can do it. I know I can do it. I'm going to figure it out. And a former colleague of mine approached me and said she wanted to co-found Aligned Recruitment with me. So we tried it. We had a lot more success than I anticipated. So the first couple months I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go all in on this. And we've just been gangbusters ever since. I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to be on my own. So I bought her out this past summer. It was very peaceful. I know a lot of co-founder ending stories can be rough, but ours was beautiful. And so now 2025 is going to be my first full year of running Aligned Recruitment totally on my own.
This is exactly why I'm doing this. This is exactly why I decided to interview the first time CEOs and understand where here you are, Julia, who is probably lost and sad and and postpartum and excited at the same time and also very super freaking busy. And then you're the next moment you're rocking it. It's these stories just drive my curiosity. And you guys, I want to tell you that in 50 episodes, there will be a book and you're going to be able to read about Julia as well. Recruitment. Why recruitment? What are you passionate about in recruitment?
Great question. So I actually got my start in recruitment on the college side. So shortly after I graduated from college, I got an opportunity to be an admissions counselor where I was coaching families and students on getting into the college that I worked at the time up in New York. And I loved it. I'm a natural people person, so I loved getting to work with people. I loved getting to talk with people all day long. And then my husband and I relocated down to Atlanta, Georgia for his job. And I wanted to get out of higher education and just try a different industry. So I tried a year of marketing. Turns out that was not for me. It was a lot of just sitting behind a computer and staring at spreadsheets, and that is not my skill set. So I was like, let me get back to recruitment, but let me do it on the corporate side so I can work with people from a huge variety of professions and industries. And so I ended up loving it. It's just been an amazing fit. Again, I love working with people, so I get to be on the phone with people all day long. So it's basically my dream come true.
This is your quote. I'm quoting you. I went from never selling a day in my life to closing 750,000 within 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
So how in the world did that happen?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. That's a great question. I was as surprised as you are, Victoria. I did not anticipate sales being a skill set of mine because, like I said, I enjoy talking to people. But when you're recruiting them, recruiting is not sales. Like a lot of people say it is, but sales, you're trying to get someone to give you money. With recruiting, you're trying to hand someone a great salary, a great company, a great job, a great boss. Like you're giving someone a great opportunity. So it's actually a completely different skill set. But luckily, a lot of the skills I've already developed, it turned out were very transferable. So a lot of that revenue came from existing relationships. So companies I'd already recruited for, candidates I had placed before who liked working with me, so were open to working with me again. And then just connections from people I knew. And I think just being very authentic, like my personal and professional brand, quote unquote, are basically the same. Like what you see is what you get. Who I am on LinkedIn is who I am at home. So I think people really respected that and appreciated that. And they know that I run my business with authenticity and with integrity. So I think those skills have really translated. And then honestly, it takes a lot of tenacity to be a mom, and I've been a mom for 4 years. And so I think that taught me you can learn anything. You can figure out how to sell. You can figure out how to do business development. In my case, I hired a coach who's a genius, Diane Prince. She scaled and sold her staffing company for $28 million. So I was like, oh, let me learn from the best. You know what you're doing. So she taught me how to sell, and I've just done what she told me to do and never looked back.
So you just emailed, messaged. What is that exactly that you do? How did you approach it?
Good question. Good question. So I have a huge focus on LinkedIn. That is where most of my marketing and branding is. That's how you found me, which I'm so honored to be on this conversation with you. So part of my marketing strategy is that I've been posting every single day as I've built this company and gone on this journey. I've posted about it every single day. So LinkedIn has been a really useful tool for me where people can see my story, and then I go ahead and message them on LinkedIn to send them that individual hey, would you want to work with me? this is what we're doing. This is how I can support your business. Are you open to a conversation? So these were all LinkedIn messages. In some cases, if I had their emails or if I had their numbers, I would follow up that way as well. But for the most part, a lot of my marketing has been on LinkedIn. So that was the first strategy, was those warm leads. The second strategy, like I said, is LinkedIn content. And then from that LinkedIn content, I get a ton of people requesting to connect to me, people who are in my ICP, which I work in tech recruitment. So people who are C-suite VPs and director level at tech startups. Those people are now coming to me because they like the message I'm putting out. They see that I'm a people first recruiter and they want that energy hiring for them and for their teams. So it's been a lot of opportunity just in people that have become part of my community on LinkedIn. I just follow up with them and send them messages to touch base after they've reached out to me.
So you want to say that 750K came from LinkedIn?
Basically, Victoria, basically. And I can't downplay the fact that that happened because I've been working in recruitment for about 8 years now, right? So like I had these connections, I had these people, but yeah, LinkedIn was the vessel that got me in touch with a lot of them.
You build a community first.
And a reputation.
Community and reputation. And this is what I'm studying thoroughly right now. When you start from zero and, nobody knows about you, nobody knows about your company. And when you start with, I don't know, thousands of followers that know you, who you are, what you do, it's easier for them to trust you. It's easier to know that you're not fake, you're not going to sell bullshit, you're not going to lie or pretend or whatever. So this fascinates me the most. And somewhere recently I read, no, I didn't read. I wrote about it. I wrote a newsletter, my previous newsletter, how the secret of the 19th century is matching with what's happening in the world and entrepreneurship right now. And one of the strategies is to build relationships and communities.
I completely agree with that. I was actually just talking about that earlier this week. My father-in-law was so gracious and he was saying to me, the reason you've been so successful is not because you picked recruitment as an industry. It's because of who you are, like the way that you connect with people, the way that you deliver on your promises, the way that you conduct your business. So I agree. Like it's an industry agnostic practice that as long as you genuinely care about people, are really, really talented at making and then cultivating relationships and have 100% say-do ratio where you do everything you say you'll do, then you'll be successful.
I know that you couldn't even file an LLC.
Oh, yeah, girl. I was like, there's so many logistics. Like, what do you even do? Yeah, 100%.
How did you learn to be an entrepreneur and how did you train that skill?
Yeah. So a huge part of it, like I said, was hiring my executive coach. She was massively helpful. And then honestly, I just got support from people who knew more than I did in all the different areas. So for example, when I first came on board with my co-founder, she had filed the business in New York because that's where she was living. But when I bought her out, I had to refile it in Georgia. And rather than filing it as a partnership, I had to file it as an LLC. So I hired a lawyer who knew how to do all of that. And then I hired a CPA who could help me with the taxes and the accounting. Then I hired a bookkeeper who could help me with the profit and loss and figuring out margins. I recently hired a fractional CFO who's helping me with 2025 projections. So thank God there's so many people that know all these things so much better than I ever could. So I can focus on how to really bring value to my clients and they can help me with the back end. So that's what I learned is you outsource, you hire, which is what I preach to my clients and it's what I do myself.
Update me on the recruitment industry. What is trending today? And I know that you work with tech giants and tech talent. What's shaking?
What's shaken? Same thing as every other industry. AI is massive. So there's a lot of conversation right now about what role AI can and should play in recruitment. So a lot of recruitment agencies actually use robots to interview candidates. I do not do that. I think that is a horrible candidate experience. And yes, could I save money instead of hiring recruiters and just have a tool do that for me? 100%. Does that align with my commitment to excellence and integrity and white glove experiences across the board? No. So that's one aspect of the industry that seems to be shifting. But honestly, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it really is an industry that is predicated on strong relationships. And if you're able to help your candidates trust you and help your clients trust you, you're going to kill it. That's been true since recruitment started. It'll be true forever.
So you're not diving in that AI hype kind of thing. You
Oh, I
prefer
100% am. No. Hear me say, I love AI and I use it. There's a lot that we automate here at Aligned Recruitment, and I'm very grateful for that. It has saved us a ton of time and money. But one thing I have not automated and will not automate is screening candidates. I really do believe in the human touch there.
Okay, let's talk about the recruitment and what is the process like in Aligned Recruitment Agency?
Yeah. So we, of course, first chat with our clients or our prospective clients just to make sure that it makes sense for us to partner. So like you said, we recruit with tech companies, we recruit with tech startups for the most part. So anywhere up to 500 employees typically is our biggest client size. But a lot of our clients are super tiny, like between 10 and 50, I would say, as far as employee headcount tends to be our sweet spot. So we have a conversation about what they're projecting, what they need to hire, why they need to hire it, how we can support them, how they've tried to recruit before, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And then once we've done that needs analysis, then we're able to explain this is how we can support you. And then when they actually become a client, we have that deep dive conversation. This is really where the magic happens. I ask a ton of questions, like exactly what you're doing right now. You know, this is how to be successful in like all facets of life. So I ask a ton of questions to make sure we understand exactly what kind of people they're looking for their open roles. And then what really sets us apart is 2 days later, we come to them with 10 candidate profiles that we've headhunted. And we say, hey, this is what you told us you wanted. Let's walk through each of these people one by one. And you give us your totally candid feedback live on this call so that we can go out and find the exact right talent and make sure that we're totally aligned before we start pounding the pavement, reaching out to candidates for you. And then from there, it's just a matter of screening and then sending candidates their way, coordinating the interview process, and then getting to offer.
And what is your business model? Do you charge companies or do you charge companies and candidates?
Oh, we only charge companies. Yeah, if a recruitment agency charges a candidate, they're probably a scam. So no candidate should be charged for services.
Okay, you guys remember that.
Yeah, everyone remember that, please. Do not pay. Now, should you pay a career coach? Yes, that's totally different. They will definitely help you and they are worth their weight in gold. But no, we don't charge candidates for our recruiting services.
What are some of the uncommon red flags during the interviews?
That's a good question. Uncommon red flags. So what is always a question mark for me, because I'm very transparent about compensation from the very first conversation. So I even typically send it in the message before we even get on a call. So the candidate knows exactly how much the client is able to pay, how much is in their budget. So what's a little bit of a red flag for me is if a candidate comes back, after several interviews, maybe they even have an offer on the table from the client and they're like, well, now I want more money. I'm like, well, we were very transparent at the beginning and you said this figure worked for you. And I get it. As a candidate, you've been taught you have to negotiate, and I don't fault them for negotiating, but it can be a little tricky when what they said at the beginning of the process was one figure and then at the end of the process, they've changed their tune. That can give me a little bit of pause where I'm like, are you just playing the negotiation game or is there an integrity issue here? What exactly is going on? So that can be one thing. Again, I try to mitigate by being totally transparent about compensation from the very beginning. But then as far as red flags, I mean, I don't really view them as red flags as much as I'm just checking to see if there is alignment between this specific candidate and this specific client. So I just want to make sure that we're aligned on both sides.
How do you acquire and retain your customers except the LinkedIn sales process?
LinkedIn is basically it.
All of it.
Yeah, I can't really think of a client that came through a different source.
Okay, I'm officially a fan, you guys. I'm a fan.
It's crazy. Like it's just so effective. Like LinkedIn is a powerful tool. Like, do I pull people's email addresses and then nurture them over email? Of course. I have a weekly newsletter for candidates, a weekly newsletter for clients. Like I have other methods where I'm staying in touch throughout the duration of our relationship or just them being a prospect of mine. But yeah, all my business has come through relationships that I have either built outside of LinkedIn and then brought to LinkedIn or that started on LinkedIn.
Okay. LinkedIn marketing. What content has been working for you?
Yeah, great question. So you absolutely should be investing in your LinkedIn brand, especially if you run a B2B business. There is no more powerful engine for you. So I recommend, again, I'm very much a fan of hiring experts. So I hired a LinkedIn marketing expert, Toby Aluole. We can put his website in the show notes. He is an absolute genius at building LinkedIn content. So I took his course and basically learned about the main categories that tend to perform really well. And a lot of them are related to recruitment. So careers, compensation, job switches, raises, promotions, things like that tend to perform really well. And then also, I'm very transparent about kind of building my business in public. So I think people really resonate with my story. There have been so many layoffs during maternity leaves, paternity leaves, people who are pregnant, people who had big families. And so I think they really appreciate that I get that story, but that I was able to turn it around and have a really beautiful first 18 months of getting to run Aligned. So I think the personal side of it really resonates with my audience as well. So I kind of mix in a blend of professional and personal.
So yeah, like you mentioned before, authenticity and openness and transparency play a big role
Absolutely.
in building.
Yeah, they've been a game changer for me.
What are the most important things during the recruitment process, both for companies and the candidates?
So I would say the most important things are number one, that first step that we do, where we do a deep dive on the roles that they're looking to recruit for, and then we calibrate on the roles and make sure we're actually on the same page before we start recruiting candidates. So that just is like a double check to ensure that we are getting the exact right people for these exact same or exact right roles that our clients need to fill. So that first step is key. And then secondly, staying aligned throughout the process. So being consistent with the interview process and then being consistent with the types of candidates we're going after on the client side. And then on the candidate side, really working to stay in touch with candidates throughout the process. So moving them through interviews as quickly as possible, limiting the number of interview rounds as much as possible so that they don't get interview fatigue, and then letting them know whether or not we're going to be able to move forward with them for the position.
Any unusual success stories on both sides? Maybe like some interesting turn of events?
Sure. Um, just last week, actually, we extended an offer to one of our candidates and she accepted. But we had another candidate in the process who was so fantastic that the client was like, well, I want to give her an offer too. So we ended up getting two candidates, these awesome offers for this awesome startup based out in DC. So that always makes me so happy when the client is so happy with the candidates we have in process that they want to hire not one, but two of them. And then, of course, that's a life-changing opportunity for these two candidates. So that was a recent success that immediately came to mind when you mentioned that. So very, very excited about that one.
Wow, that's so incredible. I'm happy for them.
I'm happy for them too. I'm so excited.
What's happening in terms of remote work, hybrid work? What do recruiters prefer now?
So I think COVID was world changing in a good way, in at least one sense, in that it did allow people to see that remote work actually can work. So I've worked remotely since before COVID. I've been working remotely for about 7 years now. But I think it showed a lot of people, especially knowledge workers who really only need a phone and a computer to do their jobs, that results-based work environments versus hours-based work environments are much more effective. So that's the case for almost all of my clients. Again, because I work primarily in tech. So for the most part, they understand that candidates do not need to come in office to be successful. That being said, a couple of my clients have different business models. One is based here in Atlanta, and they do require candidates to be in office. One that we're working on potentially partnering with right now, they're based in San Francisco, and they're a very young startup. And for them, the in-person collaboration is important. And so they do want people in office there. So there's some exceptions, and I get it, right? Like, you're the founder. You get to decide what kind of culture and what kind of environment you want to create for your team. But for me personally, I think remote work is extremely effective. I've seen a huge increase in the number of remote opportunities available ever since COVID, and candidates definitely tend to prefer it.
How about overseas candidates? Are US-based recruiters open to hiring people from overseas, or they prefer Americans?
It totally depends. So some of my clients are able to pay for H-1B visas, which is great. Some of my clients use employers of record where they can employ them while they live in another country, but they can work through an entity in that company or in that country to be employed at this company here based in the US. But I'll be honest, for the most part, my clients don't have those legal pieces worked out. So they do need their team to be based here in the US. I actually, for my company, Aligned Recruitment, I hire from all around the world. I love having access to global talent. So I have team members based in several different countries. I've had them based in several different states across the US. But it really just kind of comes down to the infrastructure of each of my clients and their openness to options like that.
What positions are the most difficult and the easiest ones to close?
Easiest, definitely software engineers, because it's a very technical position. So you can vet for how many years of JavaScript experience do you have? How many years of React, Node, NoSQL, cloud infrastructure? That's relatively easy. Sales roles are a little bit tougher. So I would say those tend to be more challenging because someone can look great on paper, but you've got to have this intangible quality to be good at sales. So that's something that can be a little bit harder to kind of vet for and to ensure is standardized across the board throughout the interview process.
As a first-time CEO, what do you think are your wins?
I feel so lucky to get to be on this journey. So wins, we're now at about 18 months in to building the business, and we're closing in on $1 million in revenue in that period of time. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. I would never have anticipated the success we've had so quickly. And I'm so grateful. Like I said, I know a lot of that as a Christian is just the grace of God giving that to us. And I'm very thankful for that. And then honestly, a huge thing I'm thankful for, a lot of examples I've seen of CEOs is total loss of themselves as they build their business. And I knew I wasn't going to build the business that way. I knew that my priority was my husband, my family, and making sure that I was showing up as the best mom and wife I possibly could before I was showing up as a CEO. So by having that commitment and keeping my why firmly in my mind, so I never lost myself in the business because I always knew ultimately my family is the reason I'm doing it. That has been something I've been very proud of and plan to carry with me for the duration of running Aligned Recruitment.
You said that your family is the most important thing for you. So how do you balance this intense growth of your business and working as a founder and the first-time CEO with taking care of your family?
It's looked very different at different seasons, even just in the short 18 months that I've been building Aligned Recruitment. So I built the business starting when my 1-year-old was only a couple months old. So there were several calls where he was strapped to a baby carrier on my chest, and I was just on camera with C-suite execs from startups, and we were just chatting, and he was along for the ride. So it's looked different at every stage. Once he started sleeping through the night at around 6 months, I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning so I could have an hour to pray and read and meditate, and then another hour to work out, and then get the kids up and ready for school, and then jump into my workday. That worked for about 6 months, and then I got dangerously close to burnout, and I was like, this is not sustainable. So now I'm in a season where I work a standard 40-hour work week. So our two biological kids go to a Montessori preschool down the street from us. And then our two older sons are in high school. So both of them are, or all four of them are gone during the day. My husband and I both work remotely in tech from home. So that's how we're able to make it work, honestly, is the morning is dedicated family time. The kids usually get up around 5:30. We hang out with them and then start our work days around 8:30. And then we both are pretty good about logging off by 4:30 or 5. And then we spend the evenings with our families and go to bed and do it all the next day. So we just really are serious about our schedule and making sure that our kids always know that they're our priority.
So time management is really,
Yeah.
really important for you.
Time management, boundaries, and then knowing what I need to do to protect my energy, because parenting is beautiful, but it is exhausting. And running a business is beautiful, but it is exhausting. So the things that give me life, I need to be filling up my cup so I can keep filling the cups of everyone around me. So I have to work out every day. That's a non-negotiable. So we have a Peloton, and even if I just jump on the bike for 30 minutes and that's all I could fit in that day, we make it work. So sometimes that's during my lunch break. Sometimes that's during the weekends when the kids are napping, like whatever. I find that time and I make it happen. The other piece, like I said, is my faith. So I have different devotionals I just listen to while I'm doing my makeup or while I'm driving home from dropping the kids off at school. And then the last one is community. So we love our friends. We love our people here in Atlanta, Georgia. We actually lead a weekly support group for foster and adoptive families here. So that's huge as well. Like it really fills my cup to get to be with people that are on a similar journey to us. So those are the three things that I'm very structured about, that I make sure I get those things so that I can continue to be my best self in all the other areas of my life.
As a mom, do you pay attention to maternity leave, DEI practices during the recruitment process? Do you talk about that with companies?
Very much so. It breaks my heart that we're seeing so much DEI get rolled back here in the US ever since the new administration. I think that's horrifying and absolutely a massive step in the wrong direction. That is a huge part of my conversations. That's something I ask all of my clients when we start our process, is I ask, what exactly do benefits look like? In terms of maternity leave, paternity leave, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. That's a big reason I had the freedom and flexibility to start my business, is because my husband has amazing benefits at his company. So he was able to carry the benefits while I started the business. And his company actually offers a 4-month paternity leave. Like the non-birthing parent has 4 months. So there's a lot of companies that are absolutely using definite best practices, but it's no secret that the US is basically the worst developed country in terms of maternity and paternity leave. Like I have a friend of mine who runs a business in Toronto, and she just had a baby a year and a half ago and hasn't worked for a year and a half because she gets paid leave. And now she's pregnant, so she won't work for another year and a half because she'll get another set of paid leave. So hear me say, the US has a lot of work to do, but I am grateful that there are a lot of really awesome companies that just privately fund these really generous maternity and paternity policies for their employees. So yes, that's always a question that I ask.
Let's talk about your challenges and how do you face them and how do you overcome them?
It is a daily process. So I'm not going to sit here and say I've overcome every challenge. The challenges are over. I've arrived, right? Like I won't I won't ever arrive, actually. So that is a posture that has been very helpful for me, to just let go of this perfectionist mindset and really embrace every single thing that happens to me is for me. Nothing happens to me. Everything happens for me. So that has been a massive mindset shift that has really helped me. So some of the early challenges were, I didn't have the mindset of a 7-figure founder because I'd only ever been an employee. So it was terrifying to me that suddenly I had to make all my own money. Like I didn't have a base salary. I just had to go out and whatever I sold was what I earned. So I had to really shift my thinking about money and about wealth and about my worth and my value. So that was huge. Another piece was coming to the realization that I wanted to run the business by myself and having to start the process of having those hard conversations with my co-founder, where I was like, hey, I love you. I love working with you. We were good friends for years. We worked together for years. Like, we have a great relationship still. But really coming to terms with, like, I know that I want to build this on my own terms. So that was a challenge that, like I mentioned, ended beautifully, but I had to jump into that not knowing how it would end. And then finally, like I said, all the different seasons we've journeyed through just in the past 18 months, like, just learning to balance life and family and kids and marriage and all that kind of stuff as a business owner is so different than as an employee. So that's been a continual learning and something that I've failed at, succeeded at, pivoted, done differently, tried different things, tried different schedules, tried different approaches. So for me, the only way to fail is to give up. And that's something I preach to myself and preach to my kids every day. So as long as I'm moving forward, I see it as a success.
I lost my thought.
Well,
the challenges, the pivoting, I remembered. Boom. So as a first-time CEO and the founder myself, I often catch myself, I planned my week. Here's what I want to do. This is my morning routine. And then one of the days something happens, or I have an unusual wave on inspiration, which goes against my plan, but I feel with my intuition and my heart that's the right thing to do right now. So especially with a big family that you have and, different circumstances, how do you maneuver between this is a plan and it's super static and steady to like this flexibility and like, okay, we turn to, the different direction today, because I know this is the right thing to do.
So first of all, I think your intuition is one of your best tools as a founder. So I think that's amazing that you follow your gut and you trust your instinct. I think that's a lot of how founders are successful, is because we've learned to listen to our intuition. So I think that's massive. I'm in a slightly different space because my days are honestly typically back to back. I'm on client calls, I'm on candidate calls, I'm on team calls, I'm doing podcasts, I'm at speaking engagements. So I don't have as creative of a role as you do. So for me, my calendar honestly is a little bit less forgiving in terms of if I have a sudden flash of inspiration, like maybe I'll try to quickly jot a note down on my agenda while getting ready for my next call. But to be honest, in my case, the things that typically throw my schedule off are, to your point, my family. So today, for example, the day that we're recording this, my 1-year-old was sent home sick from school. So no worries. I ran to school, picked him up. I hung out with him for about an hour, put him down for his nap. And now my husband is watching the baby monitor from his office so that I can take this interview, right? So it's flexibility. It's having a partner who we're here for each other as we build our careers and our families at the same time. And like I said, it's just really reminding myself that it's about work-life integration and just making all of it work in whatever way each individual day presents.
Yeah, as a woman without kids, sometimes I tend to beat myself up for like changing the course. And I'm like, you decided to do this, then you have to do this today and no matter what. And the more I force myself to whatever super stable and static, the more I understand I have to be more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So this battle, and I think I'm about to give up and just like, okay, I plan and I stay within the plan, but sometimes I give myself some wiggle room whenever my intuition says that that's the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And hear me say, you know this, you have to be disciplined, of course, as a founder. So I think that's obvious. But then within the confines of these are the goals I set for myself, these are the things I'm going to do daily to make it happen, there also has to be that space for intuition and knowing in your gut what you need to do next or what you need to do in that moment or what you need to plan. So I think the balance there is really what's key.
What any other secrets that you have in running your business that worked or didn't work for specifically you and your team?
Examples of what didn't work. Don't even worry. So I have, like I said, LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful vessel in more ways than we've even talked about so far. So another business development strategy I use is once I'm connected to someone on LinkedIn, if there's someone who's in my target client profile, I go ahead and send them a personalized LinkedIn video message where I say, hey, Victoria, I'm so impressed by your work at the First Time CEO. Noticed that you did XYZ. Let me know if you're ever open for a quick call. Something short, sweet, to the point where they see like, oh my gosh, she actually looked at my profile, knows who I am, knows what I'm doing, knows my accomplishments. So that has worked really well. People seeing that it's actually me, I'm actually sending them this message, and I actually care about who they are as individuals. What doesn't work is that exact same practice, but via email. So I was recording individualized looms, like a totally individualized message. I sent it to, I want to say about 1,500 different people. And my response rate was like maybe 3%. And so I was like, okay, clearly this is not converting. But like I said before, I saw that as a success because I'm like, great, I've learned how not to spend my time by trying it, seeing it didn't work, and then that frees up my mental energy to pivot back in this direction. And for other people I know, email marketing works really well. That just wasn't the case for me in my business model.
So you don't use your employees to run your LinkedIn?
I have my operations manager run my LinkedIn inbox. So like because I get so many people reaching out, right? So I just can't humanly get through all of it by myself. So she does help me with that, but I do a good amount of outbound messaging myself as well.
Okay, so the message that you craft is your copy.
No, it's me on video. Like I take my phone and I literally say to my selfie camera, like, hello, Victoria. Like it's only me on camera, right? So you can see it's me. So that is what I've seen convert really well because they see it's me and not, a robot or a VA.
And then you have someone sending that and responding.
So I'm the one sending it. Like I send it directly from my phone. But then I get a lot of inbound messages. So if it's a candidate looking for a new role, or if it's basically a message that my operations manager knows how to respond to, then she'll be the one to handle that.
So you have a big community now, right? So do you do events? Do you gather the community?
No, that would be so exhausting. Girl, you've gotta, in my case, I've just gotta stay clear on my calling. That's a dramatic way to put it. Not that I think recruitment is my calling, right? I think I'm doing a valuable service. It matters. What I mean to say is I need to stay focused on how I deliver. That's a better way to put it. So I deliver value to my clients by recruiting. I do executive coaching now for fellow recruitment founders, and I appear on podcasts and I appear at events, but I'm not myself an event planner. So I'm not going to bring people together virtually. I'm not going to bring people together physically. There are so many people that are already doing that and doing it so well that I want to stay in my space and deliver excellent results in my space, and then go to those events and speak at those events and be part of those opportunities with other people.
Let's talk team management. What was the most important while hiring your own team?
So initially we hired contractors because we didn't know how to do it. To be totally honest, we didn't know how to hire W-2 employees. We've now figured it out, I'm glad to say. So my whole team are full-time internal employees. So there's me, obviously. And then we have our operations manager. We have a talent sourcer, and we're currently in the process of hiring a full cycle recruiter. And we're also chatting with a couple other operations specialists about potentially coming on board as well. So we're going to scale. My guess is we'd probably scale to a team of anywhere from 5 to 8 by the end of 2025. So the way that I make hiring decisions is pretty quick. So I have been through many drawn out recruitment processes from working with a couple of companies, and I know that doesn't serve me or my client or my candidate. So my goal is have an initial call, right? Like get to know them, see if this is a good fit on both sides. I am very candid and very transparent with them about compensation, expectations, what I'm looking for them to accomplish, the kind of environment we have here. If we're aligned, then I have them do some kind of take-home assignment depending on what the role is. So if it's a recruiting role or a sourcing role, I give them an example of a position and I say, okay, go find me 5 candidates who fit this position. And then for the final interview, I have them connect with my operations manager because she's a massive part of my business. And then I'm the one who kind of conducts the last step of just, hey, we've loved meeting with you. Here's our offer. Let's move forward.
You're so good. You're just so good at putting things clearly.
Oh, thank you, Victoria.
I think you're a very talented coach. What questions do you answer maybe multiple times a day or a week?
And so a lot of the same stuff we've talked about today, honestly, the number one question I get is, how do you do business development? How do you do sales? Every single founder I know, because that's how you make money. That's how you stay in business. So everyone is like, how do I keep the lights on? How do I keep the clients coming in? How do I monetize this? How do I make this work? So a lot of what we talk about is business development strategies and a lot of what I shared with you today, honestly.
What is the most working business strategy for recruiters today?
I always tell them to start the same way I did, with their warmest leads. Any client, candidate, former colleague, former hiring manager, anyone who's a remotely warm contact of theirs who they can reach out to and see if they'd be open to working with them. I'm like, you need to exhaust that list of people before you start doing any cold outreach. That's my best advice to any founder.
What are your first time CEO lessons so far?
Lessons. A lot of what we talked about, listen to your intuition, but I would couple that with be thoughtful, and if you're a person of faith, be prayerful. So I've done a lot of praying about the business since I started it. So whatever your faith journey is, like, I would really give yourself that reflective space. It can be so tempting to fall into just making knee-jerk reactions because there's always so much coming at you as a founder. So it can be tempting to just like make a decision quickly. But I'm a big believer in get total clarity, reflect, and then obviously you can refine as you go. But I try really, really hard to make thoughtful decisions. So that's number one. And then number two, just staying crystal clear on your why. Why are you building this business? What are your goals? What does success look like to you individually? And don't let anyone else dictate the answer to that question except for yourself.
What is your why?
My family. Done. Easy. My 2 beautiful biological sons, my 2 awesome foster sons, my husband, and then God. That's it.
So bringing in abundance is the most important for you.
Bringing in abundance, but also doing it in a way that honors my responsibilities to my family. Like I said, like not overworking, not being so consumed with the business that I neglect my responsibilities to my family. I never want them to feel like I chose the business over them. I want them to see the business as a tool that has served our clients, our family, all of us. But I really want to make sure that I'm maintaining that posture of honoring my responsibilities.
Your biggest failure to date as a first-time CEO?
Honestly, as much as I respect my former co-founder, I wish I had had the confidence to start the business completely on my own from the get-go. I lacked that confidence to know that I could do it. So I partnered with her because she had built a business before. So if I could go back in time, I would tell myself like, hey girl, you got this. Like, go out on your own. You can do it on your own.
Do you think there was fear?
100%. Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's so scary to go from like, here's my weekly or biweekly paycheck to you will only make money if you close business. Like that is the only way that you will put food on the table this month. Yeah, I was terrified. I was totally terrified.
Is there anything you're terrified of now?
I think I've learned I don't need to be terrified. So I wouldn't use the word terrified anymore because I think I have really strengthened the muscle of nothing is permanent, right? Like I can always figure it out. Like even in that example that I just gave about, I wish I could go back and tell myself to do it on my own. I was able to buy out my co-founder. So it still worked out. So honestly, nothing terrifies me at this moment, but something I do think about a lot is wanting to balance hiring for my team with the sales I am doing, right? And making sure that they're on track with each other and that I am hiring at the right pace to meet the client demand as we continue to scale. That's something I think about a lot right now.
Any advice that you would give to the fellow first-time CEOs or aspiring CEOs?
I would say the number one skill set you've got to create in yourself is building a strong mind. You've got to have resilience. You've got to have grit. You've got to train your mind to see success instead of failure and to turn your failures into successes, or else you'll get discouraged and you'll quit.
So growth mindset, train your growth
Growth mindset.
mindset,
Exactly.
not the scarcity one.
100%. Abundance, growth, grit, perseverance. Exactly.
Any resources you can recommend? What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to?
Great question. Several books I recommend. Number one, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I know that's a classic, but it really was massively impactful to me. I just reread for the second time The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. So that was massive as someone who's building a company and doesn't want to lose myself in the process. So that was very helpful. And for my fellow female founders out there, I just finished the book, We Should All Be Millionaires. And the author, Rachel Rogers, is referring to us as women specifically when she says we. So we are the all that she wants to be millionaires. So I loved that. So those are 3 books I highly recommend.
Okay, you guys, I will leave all these books, all the links in our show notes. Thank you very much, Julia. I am so grateful for your time today and for your insights. And I wish you even more success and growth on your journey.
Thank you, Victoria. It was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching and for listening. And if you want to be my guest on the First Time CEO podcast, I will leave the application form as well. And in 50 episodes, this is going to be a book about amazing first-time CEOs and early stage founders. And I hope that all the wisdom that I collect will be very, very valuable and useful to you. And I'll see you next time in the next episode. Bye.